Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Today we're looking ahead at the Burning Crusade specifically, and the best way for me at least that the game could go in order to meet the needs of the most players possible. Ever since Blizzard's original poll that was sent out to a large number of players, there's already quite clearly a realization on their behalf that there is a demand for players to remain in Classic despite TBC being a thing. Which I get. I mean, people have been playing private servers for years and years now, and well, some people just like Classic the most out of any version of WoW, or maybe instead those people who would rather continue on Classic would go back to alternate ways of playing the game, if you know what I mean. Because whilst I understand the appeal of a lasting Classic era server, I just can't help thinking it'll end up being a very small portion of players and basically nothing will be happening on other than peak times on the servers that remain. That might be enough though, so long as people still get to raid or PvP in decked out full Naxxramas Bis. But the content that's core to an MMO and usually keeps you coming back would have been long gone. The gear chasing, the character progression, the new patches or content phases. I bet near all of you watching have seen or at least heard of somebody getting that dream item or goal they've been working towards since Classic was a thing, and then just disappearing overnight the second they got it, like Rank 14, Thunder Fury, Hand of Rag, or just Bis for a certain phase. I feel like I'm not even being pessimistic here, I just can't see a world where this doesn't end up happening. So then, how do we go about keeping the crowd that's been campaigning for Classic happy, release the Burning Crusade, and not just have Classic kind of become a desert after a couple of months, and not create community divides between several different games running alongside each other all of the time? The answer has to be fresh, surely, but fresh with no expectation the server will transfer to TBC, well, at least for the time being. Hear me out, this is what I reckon would be good. Oh, and this is obviously pretty idealistic in my opinion, I don't know how feasible any of this is, but here we go. So our current servers are progressive to TBC, meaning things go exactly the same as they did in 2007. There's no choice in the matter, we go forwards. On the day that the pre-patch for the Burning Crusade drops, our characters are copied to Classic Legacy servers, which will remain on Phase 6 at the point they're currently at, with all the updates that have been put into the game up to then from Vanilla or new ones from Classic. The copy would be on Blizzard's end, so you can't just recopy your character again and again to try and basically print gold, unless there is another good way around that. At some point down the line, the Classic Legacy servers would either open free transfers to try and repopulate realms where the realm population has kind of worn away over time, or more likely, merge realms to have your name / guild appear followed by your server name as not to require any renaming issues. I know even some MMOs have merged servers and made you need to pick a second name, but I'm not quite sure how well I go down in WoW. Even now there's already a few pretty dead servers out there, and I predict a lot less people wanting to frequently play Classic than TBC moving forwards. There would be no expectation for the Legacy Classic server to be progressive at any point in time. The goal here is to keep the idea that the main game moves forwards, but there is a cutoff for the Classic content. There are already repopulation or server life support projects being put on by players currently to stimulate a fresh experience. I don't see why this still couldn't be a thing even once TBC is out on Legacy Classic servers. If the demand is there, it should happen. On top of this, the guys who want to remain in Classic and play around with their Phase 6 Bis are also able to do that. So this is kind of heading in the right direction in my opinion. And I could actually see something very similar to this happening. And now the slightly more reaching bit, I guess. Because say this happened, we would have our current servers, which would be on TBC, our Legacy Classic server, which is frozen in Phase 6, but people like fresh a lot. And repopulation projects just, well, it's not quite the same. You're going to have 60s and full Bis running around on PvP servers, auction house prices are going to be all over the place, easy access to getting boosted if you got any mates at 60, or just depending on how easy gold is to make. Dungeons or early raids are going to be pretty scarce, BGs below level 60 will be literally non-existent, and even at 60 it will be peak time players or holiday weekends for PvP mainly. So then, can we fit fresh into the equation somewhere? I think we can. So over the last 2 weeks, I've been running some polls because, I mean, there's quite a few of you guys here who are super passionate about the game, and I'm happy to be sort of an opinion lightning rod as much as I can. Thank you all so much again for voting. You just never know who may be seeing or hearing these things. And with over 25,000 votes over the space of 2 weeks, that is, yeah, that's a lot. So let's check the results and then I'll tell you the big brain idea, okay? Poll number 1. If Blizzard re-release Classic now with the same release/patch schedule as it was from launch in 2019, would you play it again? Only 11% of voters were heavily in favour of a copy-paste classic re-release, 24% would give it a go, maybe just for the hype at the start, 18% were kind of indifferent to the idea, and 47% with a straight-up no, they're not interested in starting again. So aggregate-wise, 35% of responses were more on the positive side, 75% were more negative. Poll number 2. If Blizzard re-released Classic with significant changes from how it was in 2019, would you play it again? I deliberately worded the poll and the answers similar to the last one. This one hit 10,000 votes in a day too, which is just unreal. The examples of changes I suggested in the poll included things like lowering or removal of spell batch window, removal of melee leeway, disabling world buffs in raid content, adjusting XP when grouped with higher level players, AoE caps, raid tuning, class tuning, progressive itemization, talents or gear, and so on and so forth. 13% were fully in favour, that's 2% more than the copy-paste release. 46% would give it a try for the hype still, or to see how the game plays out with changes. It'll be one of those two reasons. I think it would have more longevity than the previous, as you'd have to start hitting the endgame to fully appreciate all the changes made. 13% were indifferent and 29% were not interested. Add them up again, the more positive responses were 59%, negative were overall 42%. Yes, that adds up to 101%. It's because of magic. Okay, let's move on. So just over 1/3 of players were somewhat interested in a pure classic copy-paste, and over half the voters were interested in classic, but with lots of changes. So, what changes are the best for the game? Well, that is the $1 million question. I think change should always aim to keep classic within the spirit of the game, a sentiment which Blizzard has recently echoed, and have really begun to acknowledge the fact that players these days are just quite a bit different from how they were back in the early 2000s. They've even doubled the amount of time the Scourge invasion will happen as well in Phase 6, so they're definitely starting to acknowledge it. And in keeping things in the spirit of Classic, you can rebalance classes through talents, through scaling, and then again there are things which just don't fit in, like LFG or LFR, and perhaps even rework large portions of the game just to keep it interesting and new. This is where the idea comes in of having seasonal servers. Fresh Classic servers that will only exist for a predetermined period of time, 4 to 8 months or so in the long run. Because everyone has a different idea of what changes would be best, both ourselves and Blizzard I imagine. It removes the obstacles of A, making people who just want to play Classic unhappy by having a separate legacy service. B, creates an environment with no expectation of long-term ramifications from the nature of changes and opens up avenues for creativity. C, it doesn't further split the player base with expectations to progress to TBC with just pure fresh servers. Done for the raid with a week? Okay, I'm going to go hop on the seasonal server and level my enhancement shaman who are now considered a top DPS. D, it creates hype around the next seasonal. These servers should aim to destroy established metas and make players want to rediscover the game. Finally, I think it's important that there isn't consistently a server up. Maybe run 2 seasonals per year, make seasonal seasonal. Stick to the expectation that it won't last forever and that you aren't playing it solely for the character progression but to experience the changes that have been introduced. Think this all sounds like total nonsense and you just want to play Classic? Legacy server would still be there for you. Honestly, I reckon a very large portion of the private server community would be all over this kind of idea as well. Oh, and you would obviously need things like increased XP rate. Next to no one is going to play a seasonal server which takes like 7 days to level to 60 on. Just to recap then, current server progressive to the Burning Crusade, legacy classic server on Phase 6, seasonal classic servers which are fresh, with major changes to make the game a new experience. Now, you're probably typing in the comments as I speak, yeah, good one, mate, like Blizzard would ever actually invest money into the game. And, yeah, I did say it was pretty idealistic, right? Also, yes, this is heavily inspired by old school RuneScape leagues, which are amazing, by the way, and really put new life into the game. I reckon this kind of format could work in WoW, and even be extendable to other expansions in the future. Even without the whole seasonal thing, which is probably just me dreaming, even though I'd bet it would be very popular, I think that the progressive for current copy to legacy servers would also still be the way to go. But that's just what I think. I reckon it'll meet the most players' demands too. So then, what do you reckon? Would seasonal be interesting to you? Do let me know, I'm curious about it. As always, thanks all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon. If you like what you see, do give the video a like and subscribe, as there will be plenty more to come. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.